Hello. This is
Hello.
just going to be presentations about topics all across the board. People should know that you have to dig real deep to find this information. I've always said be the change you want to see. So me, my friend currently on right now is Lee, and a few others decided to make a forum to share some of the conversations. Um, Today we'll be talking about we're all free by birth. And that's going to consist of a lot of things that I have no clue about, but he is very knowledgeable in. So we'll be sharing documents all via YouTube. So take it away, Lee.
Hey, Anna von Wright uh, has mentioned expatriation and repatriation. Um, and so, with that, what's actually going on there is it's considered by a lot of people to be the ultimate remedy to step outside of the commercial de facto United States Incorporated and into the Republic for the United States. And so the way that worked, exactly what has happened is a day before the 14th Amendment was actually announced to be put in place. And I'll mention that it was actually not put in place lawfully because it was passed by what's known as a rump. And a rump is basically a legislature that has only a small part of its original membership and therefore being unrepresentative or lacking in authority. So the 14th Amendment actually has no authority, but when they put things like this upon the public, there has to be a remedy. They have to make a loophole for it, and so that's what the Expatriation Act is. It is this loophole, and so this particular act that Ms. Wright was discussing is can be noted as, okay, Public Law 15, United States Statutes at Large, Chapter 249, pages 223 and 224, 1868. That's when the act would have been put in place.
Okay, because that
Now,
was right after slavery's supposed to had ended, but
right
we
now,
all
let me
know.
explain the history. What happened was the 13th Amendment, okay, abolishes slavery. And then,
Mhm.
if you'll notice, it continues to say, and involuntary servitude. Now,
Right.
slavery and involuntary servitude, you look at those two terms, you say, well, aren't those the same thing? They
Mhm.
are, in fact, they are. However, if you just abolish slavery, you know, and don't mention the words involuntary servitude, you can't. It's hard for you to put a dupe on people and open the public back up with slavery of what's considered under the 14th Amendment would be a public type of slavery that's presumed upon you, and it's presumed that you are volunteering. So, what the Expatriation Act is a remedy for the presumption of volunteering. And so that removes you from their jurisdiction. It actually creates a jurisdiction for you if you have the knowledge to pursue that. And so, but more importantly, that's a little bit of the history behind, what the reasons that this was put into the statutes at large on the public side under public law. And so, um, I'm going to try to explain what it actually is. Okay, so the rights of American citizens in foreign states. And now, what has happened is we're we have been usurped by a de facto government that is there by usurpation. It's not there by any kind of lawful standing. And it's actually Britain, which runs clear back into the Vatican law, the old
Mhm.
Roman Vatican law, which is commerce or commercial law. And
Right, because Another reason I found that out is because when it was the 13th colonies, way before, the Romans is who we were following. That's the law we were following then when it was just the 13th colonies. So I know that the Civil War, we were told it was about freeing the slaves, but really it was the complete, like the Stockholm syndrome, per se.
Exactly. Yes.
So it took slavery and enhanced it. When people knew they were slaves, they wanted to escape. But if you don't know you're a slave, it just gives you the illusion of freedom.
That's it. That's
right.
it. And so what's happened is this commercial vehicle that they've created, they've done it under commerce, and they've pretty much captured us through a document under the Uniform Commercial Code. It's basically a warehouse receipt. It has all of the ingredients of what's needed for a warehouse receipt. Mm-hmm. And that's basically what the birth certificate does, and the way that it allows them to use it in commerce. And so with the Expatriation Act, the rights of American citizens in foreign states, okay? And so because we're now in a foreign state, we're not in the republic, we're in a democracy, and we're actually at a hyperinflated level, and the democracy, that's the only thing that can happen here. And so, and that will happen. It happens every time in a democracy that hyperinflation happens. And you can look at World War II in Germany, exactly what had happened. And
so I have a question.
Okay.
Maybe even at the beginning of this, how we're talking, since we kind of both know, this really all kicked into gear, we will say, the Act of 1871. But really, it started in 1865 when the 13th Amendment was even wrote up. And I have that right here. It says neither slavery. Yeah, it says neither slavery or involuntary servitude, except a punishment of crime, whereof the parties shall be of duly convicted, shall exist within the United States, all cap, or any place subject to their jurisdiction, DC code 283002.
Right.
And I'm taking that off of this.
Yeah, and so what this expatriation does, well, you're going to, we have it refined a little bit. We're going to be using Thomas House of Diggins documents here. Mm-hmm. And so they have been refined. There's a lot of things to the document, but the main thing is about this expatriation. Okay, it's we all have a right to do this expatriation. It's a natural and inherent right of all people, and it's indispensable to the enjoyment of the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Mm-hmm. And so that's the main thing about it. See? And so the recognition of this principle, this government has, freely received.
But I have a question, Lee. When you say we have the right to know, people might not even know the difference between just the wording, persons, citizen, natural person. They need to know and go through and even know the United States of America is just the landmass. The United States, all caps, is the District of Columbia, where they have all our information, where we're legally dead men walking. We're like zombies. That's correct. The whole process we're talking about here is to come back to be natural persons. I mean, people.
Well, see, the Navy, they went to the highest mountain in the United States, and they put a base there, and they said, this is where sea level's at. Mm-hmm. So we're in the ocean. So we're on and even more than that, they capture us because the Earth is a vessel in the sea of the space.
Right.
See? And we're in the sea of the space. And so what you're doing when you expatriate is you're taking their jurisdiction away to where you're not in their jurisdiction any longer. They have no more power over you. And that's what it's about. That's why a lot of people call it the ultimate remedy.
And to be clear, we all have to do this. because we are all, anybody who has a birth certificate that is printed on bonded paper, which they all are, if it's a birth certificate, this applies to you. I don't think people get that gist. I think, you know what I mean, Lee? I don't think some people even know what we're talking about. So I'm just trying to make sure, which as I did my own stuff, and you can just read and find out, I'm sure everybody can. So all we're talking about, you'll have to do the legwork to understand Amendment 13, 14, and 15, the Act of 1871. No one has time to go all the way back there. We're starting at you are a slave, basically. And we're just showing, and Lee's going to present how you can come back and be an actual, what would be the term?
A natural person.
A natural person. Because if you know what person means, as it is in Amendment 13, 14, and 15, persons is, and this is out of the Black Law Dictionary, 4th edition, because they started changing it. And persons is the living body of a human being, the entities such as a corporation that is recognized by law as having most of the rights and duties of a human being in the sense the term includes partnerships and other associations, whether incorporated or unincorporated. Now, as we all know, what is a corporation? Corporations have owners. Your name is a corporation, unless on your birth certificate, it's not all caps. But anything you see in all caps is a corporation. And what? Corporations have owners.
Well, corporations are dead.
Right.
That's the thing. Corpus.
And that's what we are, zombies, dead men walking.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, you're not a zombie or a dead man walking, not the real man with hands and legs. That's their term, okay?
Right.
That's how they describe us on their capturing documents, which convert us into the agricultural fixtures because we're made of dirt. And so we're movable in that way. But the thing is, okay, back to the Expatriation Act. Okay, on Section 1, what it's about, okay, it's your rights. Your right is declared. Okay, so therefore, in Section 1, it says, therefore, be it enacted by the state, or excuse me, by the Senate and of the House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, that any declaration, instruction, opinion, order, or decision of any officers of this government which denies, restricts, impairs, or questions the right of expatriation is hereby declared inconsistent with the fundamental principles of this government. So, see, it's because you have remedy. They cannot encapsulate you or capture you and not provide a loophole. And so that's what this is. It is the loophole, and it's not really well known. And people worry about it. Well, am I not an American citizen? Well, you don't want to be an American citizen, believe me.
Because just because you mentioned this word citizen,
right,
in the Black Law Dictionary means, because remember, we're all citizens. Citizen is a person, and we know what a person is. I just said that. A person or a corporation who is by either birth or naturalization is a member of a political community owning alliance to in a community. What is that? Owning alliance to in a community and being entitled to enjoy all its civil rights and protections, a member of a civil state entitled to all its privileges. When they created the 14th Amendment, they had you believing you had to be a citizen, but a free person of the land to an employee of the United States. That didn't make sense.
Let me break it down to you. This is what's happened. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery, and it raised a slave to the status of citizen instead of being a bondman or under bond or owned. under private ownership, a privately owned human being, which is incorrect all the way. It's 100% incorrect. Okay, I'm not saying anything that's wrong. And so they knew this, and they knew that it wasn't fly. But what they did was they took the sovereign status of everyone else and they reduced that standing to citizen. So you see what a citizen is. And so it was a dirty thing to do to create a citizen. It was just dirty, and it's all for the citizenship because it's a ship. Everything is shipping. Everything is commerce on the high seas, and so that's the world we live in. Now, the reason that they claim that they did this is for our benefit. So we're not actually benefiting anything from it. It so it's either it was either created for our benefit or it was created to defraud us. So if it was created to defraud us, then if it's based in fraud, okay, it's void. And so if it was created for a benefit, then we have the highest claim to it. Then only we didn't know to claim it, so they have it under what's called salvage. In other words, we're dead on paper. We're dead on paper, and we haven't made a claim of the life. We haven't claimed our life. We haven't reversed the assumptions and presumptions that they did. Every time that we put a signature on anything, we're adhering ourselves to invisible, undisclosed contracts that work through assumption and presumption. And if you don't unpresume it, then you're bound by it.
Is this some people or is this everybody?
Every person, everybody.
Okay.
Unless you've taken the steps to have a recognized standing by them. And that's the other part of the documents that go along with this is one is it's a demand for the standing of a diplomat. And so, once you expatriate, you're going to repatriate as a real man with hands and legs on the land under the republic, not the democracy. And then, and then you will require them to give you diplomatic standing because they have usurped our government.
So you know how I was talking about the Stockholm system, which is kind of like when you're a parent, how you do your kids. You don't say no. You just kind of not let them have their way, but you don't say, no, you can't do that because that's when they're going to want to do that. That's kind of like what they did. They act like they abolished slavery when really all they did was transfer over thinking we had rights.
Well, they moved from a private slavery system into a public slavery system, from an involuntary slavery system into a assumed voluntary slavery system. And we do. There's nothing they can do without our consent, not even try us in a trial. If you say to a judge, when the judge is continually asking you if you understand, they're not asking if you comprehend. They're asking if you they're asking for permission. So you would come back and you would say, there's no way that I can understand that charge, Your Honor.
Well, I want to just finish before you start, because I know you have so much information. That when I just read how it went from the 13th Amendment as a person to the 14th Amendment as a citizen, and once you're nominated yourself as a citizen, you're now a legal corporation, because now we'll get into all that. Now the 15th Amendment that came in 1870, right before the Acts of 1871, was the rights of citizens of the United States, all caps, that's that square radius at the District of Columbia, to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition or servitude. So basically, you're no longer American. You're a U.S. citizen. If you ever registered to pay taxes, or if you ever registered to vote or pay taxes, or if you ever got a driver's license, you're a citizen.
Or even open a bank account.
Or even open a bank account. So I'm just trying to be clear here. You know what I mean? Who this applies to. Because you know what? When I was mentioning the Stockholms, when birth certificates first came out, before 1921, there was no birth certificate. But during 1921 and 1933, they started conditioning it, making it think we had an option. We could choose if we wanted to get a birth certificate. And then they always come back and hit you with now everybody has to have a birth certificate. But before 1921, there wasn't even birth certificates.
Well, and you recorded the birth in your family Bible. You recorded the marriage in your family Bible, and you recorded a death in your family Bible.
Right.
And it had the dates on it, and it had who died, who was born, when they were married. All of that was held in that family Bible. And so when you go into a court, you take that family Bible with you. That's your shield of protection from them. They cannot prevent the free exercise of religion. That is key in our Constitution, in the Bill of Rights, in the first part. See?
Mm-hmm.
And so, people holler separation of church and state. And that's them. So you have a right to exercise your religion.
So is this basically that Admiralty law, the law of the sea?
Yes, everything.
Hidden in plain sight, basically.
Right. Look, we have common law. It's just there's no one sitting in the seat. There's no officials. It's what's called sine die, away without day, or without day. That's what it means. Mm-hmm. It's Latin. And so Congress went away. What happened? Abraham Lincoln made Executive Order Number 1. When he did that, it created a state of martial law, putting the military in charge, and it has never changed. Congress went away sine die, and Lincoln was assassinated before he could put things back. And he did a thing called General Provision 100, and through this, it caused a gag order, so that officials, they're supposed to act. They're all actors. That's the point. They're acting as if though everything is the way that it used to be before the Executive Order 1. Okay, and that is not upfront either. That's just like a contract that's not fully disclosed. And right there is the law that keeps that from being fully disclosed. And there's a gag order on these officials. And if they would, even if they know about it, which most of them don't because it's compartmentalized information, they don't realize that they're individually functioning as a gear in this system run amok. And so they're doing it because they have children to feed, they have bills to pay, just like everyone else. And they're actually in a worse condition, if you think about it, because they have to sit and turn their head and just, they see the corruption, but what are they going to do about it? Because they'll end up in the nut house eating Halidol and Cogentin until they don't want to say anything anymore. And so that's, being a politician is like having a loaded gun to your head. And why anyone would want to do that, I don't know. I guess it's to get their hand in the cookie jar for a prestigious title or what have you, but it's not my cup of tea. But
so,
the thing, back to the expatriation. So the main thing with this expatriation deal is that it's a loophole that they had to provide because they were duping us with the 14th Amendment. And because they were duping us with the 14th Amendment the day before they did it, they created this loophole. Then they went and they created the 14th Amendment and put that in law. They put it in the Constitution and enacted it. And they did that without it even being ratified. And so it's a fraudulent law. Everything that they're doing is fiction and fraud. And so that's their undoing. But that's why that they can't stop you from expatriating.
When you were talking about ship, as in water, as in Admiralty law, that's when Admiralty law comes into play, when it comes to birth certificates. So
right, there's a lot with that.
Right. So let's just say Your birth certificate is your certificate of manifest, and your social security number is the registration, like when a ship docks, because that's how everything used to get shipped.
All right, let me explain those. What happens is our mother informs on us. She's the informant.
So the woman would be considered the ship.
Yes, exactly. That's correct. And the birth canal and the whole night. You can study Jordan Maxwell. He's really good explaining all of these things. But the bottom line is what happens is your mother puts her signature on the document, and it is called a certificate of live birth. And that particular document gets your footprint on it, where they capture your soul before it ever touches the ground. Your soul is being captured.
Mm-hmm.
And this is all done by the Vatican. This is called a SESQV account, and it goes to the Vatican. Now, basically, what they do, the doctor, and he signs it as well. He receives it, and it's merchandise. The baby that has been born is merchandise. Now, the mother, she's interested in the baby. She gets up from that bed and she's over in a clean place. She's not thinking anything about the garbage that she's left, because to her it's garbage. She has her treasure, which is the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And but to these foul people, they collect the afterbirth and the umbilical cord and those things, and they take a DNA sample of that so that they have DNA. They take it for the DNA because it is treasure to them because of what they're up to. And what they're doing is they're killing that baby with a birth certificate. What you have is the certificate of live birth that goes into the Department of Vital Statistics of the state within which you were born. Then the state's Department of Vital Statistics makes an exchange. They send that into the federal jurisdiction of Washington, D.C., where it goes through the Federal Reserve. It goes clear up to the IMF. And they say, well, little Johnny's here. So little Johnny's going to make X amount of dollars in his lifetime. So we need to go ahead and print that. And that's what they do. They use that birth certificate to print money right then and there at the birth that's going into the economy. Now that child has to grow up and work to pay it off. And if somebody would kill him, let's say, this is what happens when someone kills someone else. You're not being tried and put in prison for the act of murder. You're being tried and put in prison because you have impeded commerce. You have stopped little Johnny from paying the money back. And so you will be taken and placed in a cell within which you're in their custody. So not only do they have the warehouse receipt showing that they have you in the warehouse, and that allows them to keep these charges, charge you. And so the charges are actually bills and bonds and notes that they use on the stock market every day. And that's how the stock market has all these poisonous dividends and all this crap that's in it. And it's all just a money racket. And it's something we don't even need money. If through love, people can love one another and not want to harm each other, then we can contribute just a small amount of our time, nothing like a work week, just a small amount, 5 to 7 hours a week that we put into a community project, and all the community projects with all the people in the communities, just putting a small amount of their time in it, will produce 3 times more than the community can consume. And so you can give it to your neighbors so that it doesn't spoil. And so we really don't need money. This is an ancient thing that has happened, an ancient evil, and it's been perpetrated for some time on all of humanity. And you see what it leads to when you let them do this. They have wars and famine and all of the things that they're doing. And so this expatriation here in the United States, for to do it here in the United States, I believe if the people of the United States would come together and kick this off, we can free the whole world. But it's going to take people just saying, you know what, I'm not going to be part of this system that's run amok. I'm not going to be a gear in this anymore. And
so you saying that
If you're not expatriating, you're participating.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
So just to be clear, anybody as myself who signs over a live birth, which is the certificate of live birth. So
All right, let me make that clear.
we
The
sign
certificate of
over basically everything and it goes to the federal government.
yes. Well, we're merchandise. We're property. That's what we're considered, a human resource.
Hmm.
And if you look the word human up in the law book, it tells you that a human is a monster.
Yeah, I have that too.
Yeah, it does. That's what it says. But to be more clear, so what happens is the federal Department of Vital Statistics issues back to the state the birth certificate
On bonded paper.
Yes, and so this comes from your county, and they give this to you, and they tell you don't identify yourself with this, and no one claims it. See, no one
And
claims
then
it.
when no one claims it, you're
They consider
considered
it
legally
waste.
dead.
Well, no, they consider that waste. Well, we gave it to him; he's not using it, so they use it. They don't teach you they don't teach you any of this. It's
Right.
all wool pulled over your eyes so that they can do what they're doing. But we know about it. That's
So
the
then
thing. We
once
know what
the
they're doing.
name switches to all caps, that means that's when they actually make accounts with that name because that's a
Yes,
corporation.
yes. That's where it has been capitalized upon.
Okay.
It has been capitalized upon, and that's proof that it's a dead entity. When you go to a graveyard and you look at the tombstone, you're going to find an all caps name on all of them.
Yep.
See, and so, but what happens is, okay, now after they do that, they put you in what's called a social insurance program, and that's against God too. That's not having any kind of trust in God. But the bottom line of that is where you're put into um, when you're given the social insurance number in the United States, it would be Social Security. So
Mhm.
when a person gets their Social Security number, they have become part of a trust, and it's in construct. In other words, it's all together. There's no individual scene in it. And now you can indenture that and say, hey, you can write them a letter and say, I want to indenture my Social Security trust. And the reason being is because CNN and it's been all over the television that there's not going to be enough Social Security when it's time for me to retire. So that and no one can say, well, that didn't exist. I want to indenture it now. And what that does is indenturing it moves it out of construct. So no one can claim that it did not exist. So that's what the purpose to do that would be. But that's a different story.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
But for the expatriation, basically, the documents that we, Thomas Diggins' document is, in my opinion, the best, and he sends it out to. If we'll make the document available, and what you would do is just put your name, and the technologies that we use with this is like I would be Robert Lee, House of Thomas. That's how it would go on mine. And you would use your. Now, the middle name is something as well. The middle name comes in between your first name and your last name, and it's a Christian name. Your first name is your given name, your last name is your surname, and your middle name is your Christian name. Now, this is how the Pope attaches onto your SESQV account. This is the key within which he uses. It's kind of like an arch, you could think. The beginning of the arch on the left would be your first name, and the ending of the arch on the right would be your last name, and that middle name is at the top there, in between the arches, and it's like a lens that they use to come down and capture you with. But the SESQV Trust, what happened was in 1666, weird number, huh? But in 1666, the Vatican, the Pope of the Vatican, claimed all of humanity's souls. He claimed all of us, and so that's really where these things are all held, and that's where it all ends up and where it all goes. And so, and that's also the main functioning law comes from the Vatican throughout the whole earth. And so, if you have a bank account, it's actually a Vatican account. But some interesting things have happened. The Black Pope, he has done document on his own accord, a motu proprio, I believe they call it, and that's what it means, of his own accord. And basically what he's done is given us a way to liquidate the corporations and to hold officials responsible for their crimes, taking away their immunity. And so now this has happened. So they don't have immunity now, and their corporations are just sitting there to be liquidated, kind of in the way that David Wynn Miller went through in the 1990s, liquidating trusts. It kind of exposes them. So in commerce, a lot of people don't like commerce, but commerce can be a good thing if you understand and comprehend it. In that way, you can go around and do the salvaging and set things. What's not secure is up for grabs in commerce. See?
Right.
And contract is king. And that's just how it is. Contract, if you're in a contract with someone, it overrides the Constitution. It overrides any kind of rights that you would have. Now, but here's the thing. If the contract was entered into on a basis of fraud, in other words, if it wasn't fully disclosed to you, then you cannot be compelled to perform under a contract that wasn't fully disclosed if your rights are reserved. And that's the thing. And so to do this Expatriation Act correctly, the first step actually would be for you to reserve your rights under UCC 130A, so that step is taken. A lot of people who have filed paperwork, secure party creditor paperwork, promissory notes, those sorts of things, get in trouble because they didn't first reserve their rights to do such. And they know whether your rights are reserved or not. They keep a very good record of that, and not many know about it. And so they keep it good and hidden. Okay. But the main thing about the Expatriation Act is dealing with the thing that happened from the 13th and 14th Amendment. It's reversing that. It's stepping out of it and saying, you're not doing this to me. I'm not your slave.
Right, because I remember somebody had said to me, like in 2005, they went on fidelity.com and they actually seen stock in their name. But
yes, you can have a broker look the numbers up. If you want to know what accounts there are, you can go to a stockbroker and you can give him the number from the back of your Social Security card, the red lettered number, and they can look that up and see all of the accounts. And so it was on Fidelity. They've removed it. It used to be you could look at Fidelity and find those.
And I also, so is it clear that they are actually trading on the New York Stock Exchange?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, every day.
So this affects everybody.
Everyone that's in the developed world that has a social insurance program in their country.
And just to be clear, how most of all this even came to happen, since birth certificates weren't even law that you had to have before 1933. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the whole, we don't want to get in all that, but the Federal Reserve and how that came into play. But after the Civil War, we were bankrupt. Yeah, after the Civil War, we were all bankrupt. So in 1933, when Teddy Roosevelt had to sign for the unconstitutional, when he went in and said you had to trade in all your gold because we went bankrupt, right? We all became property that's owned by people because it's based on the fact our country went bankrupt in 1933 and they needed collateral for the loan. You are the collateral, not the person. You, or the fake name, will say is the person.
Well, see, what really happened was we were bankrupt during the Revolutionary War.
Okay.
Okay. And through the bankruptcy runs a 210-year period on a country, on a nation.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the first deal from the bankruptcy was they'd give this, the states up for that, the property. And then when the second term of bankruptcy came, they gave up all the national forests and all the reserves and things like that. They put that up for the surety. And then when the time you're talking about in the was 32, I think. What happened was that's when they put us up for the surety. But now the funny thing that happened was the bankruptcy ended in I think 2001, 2000, 2001, around in that area. And so now this is what's crazy is these assholes the bankruptcy was done. 210 years is all it can last. So what do? They go right back in bankruptcy, and they put everything up in this first phase of it. All of the resources, all the land, all of us, all of everything that we have has been put up in a new bankruptcy. This is why we will have a dictatorship. What's to happen? I mean, it has to go to that. And a democracy, look in history, a democracy is always a dictatorship after the monetary system fails. And it has to fail because of inflation. Look, how can you print your way out of debt? You cannot print your way out of debt. Now, Obama, when he first took office, we saw a big boost in the economy. The big boost in the economy was because they took 1 ounce gold coins that was printed by the Treasury with $1 trillion face value on them and deposited them into the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve was under a contract to print out X amount of dollars, and they could not meet that contract. So they were being fined because they couldn't print enough money. Now look, fines boosted our economy, which we felt. But you cannot print your way out of debt. And you certainly can't overprint your way out of debt. I mean, that's just crazy. It can't happen.
So we'll probably have we're going to have a whole chat just about the Federal Reserve and who that is and who owns it and who runs it, and it's privately owned.
And Rothschild.
Yep. Just like the IRS. It's privately owned. Even people that work for IRS. Yeah, they didn't even have enough votes enough states to make it where we even had to pay taxes, but yet everyone pays taxes or goes to jail.
Well, look, this at the time they were doing it was the largest secret in the world, and has been what they've been setting up from that is this United Nations crap. See, and that is this so-called New World Order that they're trying to bring about. And they put in play to where these nations are under disarmament. And I'm not saying that nuclear weapons are good, but I'm not saying they're bad either. If you got a nuclear weapon, who wants to mess with you? Who wants to because you can defend yourself. And so I'm not going to say that it's good just to build nuclear weapons, but it's definitely not good to disarm yourself to the point that you can't defend your country. And so that's what the process that everyone's in. And when this happens, and the United Nations is the only one left with weapons in their police force, we can see what their intentions are. Look at the Georgia Guidestones. I mean, just look
I've seen them personally.
Look at everything that's happened. We look back in ancient history, and we find that, through these ancient cultures and things, we find that they were at a high state of knowledge and technology. How do you go from that far back with that much technology into a dark age? Into a dark age where there's no science, no literature, no music, no anything, and then, come out of the dark age back up into our level of technology we're in now. Something happened. It cannot be denied. Something happened. Something dark. Something evil that just, and I don't know what to say about it. It's just, this is an ancient thing that's upon us, and we can see it. A lot of folks want to just ignore that and look at people like us and say, well,
what silence is?
Crazy.
Silence is the same as consent.
It is, and they count on that. They're counting on your silence. They're counting on your inaction. They're counting on you blowing it off. They're counting on it going in one ear and out the other. They're counting on you to depend on the other guy to do it.
So I just want to be clear, if anybody does come across this information, that the Constitution is not the same Constitution that was initially founded. Everything, the Constitution was rewrote of as 1871. The 1789 Constitution for the people is not the same. It's changed. United States of America to United States caps a 60, maybe 8 square mile radius in the District of Columbia to the United States for America. So each state is just a franchise, if that makes sense to anybody, but it probably doesn't. So,
well, and see, the other thing that they've done here of late is they've rolled the counties in. Now, I'm surprised that we still have county recorders' offices. The counties are being rolled in, and so this is the final blow. When they do this, then we won't have the sheriffs anymore with the de jure oath. See, right now, there's only 2 types of oaths that are de jure and not de facto oaths. And that would be on our local level of the sheriffs. They have a de jure oath, and they have a de jure office. And then the only other oath that's de jure in our whole country would be the presidential oath. The president swears in a de jure, he's on the de jure side. And I think there's someone in the Federal Reserve even on the de jure side. It just eludes me right now. But that's the thing, see? The president can stop all this. He can, see, they're still writing executive orders. Look, the country does not
when you
run.
say president, I want you to explain what president means. He's just the CEO of the United States.
Listen to the word president. Pre-simulation denture. That's what it means. President, pre-simulation denture. That's a man who says nothing about nothing.
Right.
That's what it means. And so, you know, and that's crazy.
Do you want to touch on? Do you want to touch on real quick about? I know all these police have been shooting all these unarmed persons, but my thing is people don't understand we're property. So when they're here to protect and serve, they're here to protect and serve the United States.
Well, it used to be protect and serve. Now it's infiltrate and bust. They want to charge. They have to get the charges. And, you know, that's the thing. Look, under the Constitution, you can only be brought up on charges if you've committed an act. Okay, let me go back to before our country was a country. The people that were here, they knew about civil rights. They knew about civics. It was on their mind every day because of being under a dictatorship. And so our people here, our ancestors that came here and colonized here, actually purchased more law books than England. And so the people here were very, very, very aware of civil rights. And so even before we were a country, when we were a colony of Britain, you know, before the Declaration of Independence, you know, people were very privy to their rights. Well, our forefathers based everything on John Locke's 2 Treatises of Government. And what that is, basically, is the no harm theory, which means that, you know, you have every right in this world but one, and that is you don't have the right to infringe upon another's right. Okay, so as long as you're not hurting anyone, you're not doing anything wrong. And you can hurt yourself all you want. If you want to go jump in a barbed wire fence, there's no law against you doing that, but now you can't push your neighbor into one, okay? So the other part of this 2 Treatises of Government, and I think it was 1671, 1691, it was in the late 1600s that he had published it. And our forefathers read that, and that is what they embraced. And everything echoes from it. All of the laws they come up with, the Constitution and everything, Actually, a lot of it's borrowed too from the females of the Native Americans.
Mm.
But anyway, so the two treaties of government had another part. It was a property law. And now the way the property law went was, if I'm walking down a path and I see an apple tree and I go over and I grab an apple off of it and I eat one and put one in my pocket and I get on down the path and somebody takes that apple away from me, they're stealing. But now if I'm walking down the path and I see an apple tree and there's a fence, the apple tree's fenced in.
Mm-hmm.
When I cross the fence and take the apple, I'm stealing. And that's along the line of the property. That's how it went. And so that's basically the foundational concepts that our government is, that our true organic constitutional republican form of government was based upon, and that's it. And so what they knew was, first of all, they had to attack our knowledge of civics. And so, I mean, these people are very calculated. They make 20-year moves on this chessboard. They set something up with a law. They let that law cook for 20 years so that it's on the books. Like right now, there's laws on the books that say that you can be coded if you're sick. You can be coded to be beheaded. Now, do they got the guillotines out beheading people? Not right now. They don't. Our dictatorship's not here yet. You see, everything has been set up for this dictatorship to fall into place. Obama wrote into executive orders, taking over everything: gas companies, electric companies, phone companies, water companies, all energy companies, all land, all property, all corporations. And these books, these executive orders are just sitting there.
Right.
They're written, and so that's how they do it. They let me give you how an example. Okay, when they didn't have any cameras. Okay, and so
I couldn't hear your
what'll
thing
happen
messed up. What'd you say?
Okay, like when I was in school, there was no cameras in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have cameras in the classroom, and so to do that, what you would do is you would put the cameras in the kindergartners class, and then when the kindergartners are first graders, the first graders have cameras, and then when they're second graders, the second graders have cameras. And then eventually you get that kindergarten class that's in the 12th grade. And by that time, there's cameras in every room. That's how they do it. And it's like the frog in the boiling pot. You just throw him in scalding water, he's going to jump out. But if you turn the water on, if you put the heat on when it's lukewarm, the frog never realizes it's even in water that's boiling.
Okay.
See? It's the same thing. And that's the kind of pot that they cook us in. And we're nothing to these people. Look, the truth of the matter, and this is some harsh truth, the truth of the matter is that there are children stolen out of our country every year, and their blood is drained. They're butchered for their blood and for, I guess, the pineal gland and things like that as well are consumed from these children. And the bodies of these children are then ground up and put into processed foods and put into fast foods and fed for the rest of us. And they laugh at this because they're drinking the blood of the children of their enemies while they feed the children's bodies back to us. And they've made our favorite food sausage and hamburger because that's their biggest outlet for it. And they don't waste it, they don't waste anything. They don't waste anything. And they think it is funny, and it's not funny. And they're going to think it's funny. But
I wonder if that
that's
has
how
something
sick it
to
really.
I wonder
That's
if that
how
has
sick it
something
is.
to do with that 800,000 missing kids a year.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that high of a number that they're actually butchering, but a lot of these children are taken and because of the pedophilia that these people perpetrate, and to them, they how do you take a 3-year-old child and say that if you're having sex with this 3-year-old child, it's not wrong? That you can even justify it? I don't understand that. I can't even fathom or comprehend how someone can do these things, but they are happening. You can't just turn a blind eye to it. It is happening.
Right.
And it's sad that they use, you know, the children that have it the hardest, those that don't have parents and who are stepchildren, and you know, those are the ones that they uh, traumatize the most, or the ones that they, you know, they don't have protective parents to help them and things like
Right.
that. And so those are who they look for. That's what they're looking for.
I could
And
have swore I
I'm not
read
just saying
somewhere.
these things. Yeah, you can go into history and you can look at this. And I'm not going to slander or be racial or anything, but it's the Khazarians who practice these things, and it's all in the Bible. They're telling you in the scriptures of the Bible what they do. They pass the children through the fire to Moloch. They they do this, and they've done it all throughout history. It's a death cult, and that's part of this money thing, and it's part of the commercial thing, and all of the symbolism that they use. Everything that they're doing is just ridiculous. It's all just this worship of these evil entities, and that's what they're doing. And so I mean, you know, and so they have prestigious lives and wealthy lives, and it's a materialistic world to them. And so, you know, when we cut ourselves off from the caring of this materialistic world, and we put our faith in, you know, in our own liability, in our own ability, then we take ourselves out of that. And so, but if we're not, you know, if we just sit and just go along with it, then we're a complacent participant in it. Let's say it that way. So, you know,
Yeah.
that's messed up. And so that's what the expatriation about that Anna is speaking about is to expatriate yourself out of the commerce
Do you want me to pull that
on,
up?
yeah, well, you can, onto the land. We'll make the documents available wherever the link is for this. And yeah, it's a shame Thomas is in prison because uh, he has a, a lot of documents and ways to post them, like zipped in files that you can just go to a place and there'll be a ton of documents in one place in a zip file. And there's a few little boats of that around, but
So do you want me to pull up Anna's or?
I guess you can show that, yeah.
Okay, let me find that.
That's what it entails, though. That's why it's a good thing.
Let me
And
see.
the other thing, you know, they can't deal with you when you have this paperwork correctly. There's nothing they can do to stop you, as long as you comprehend what you've done. That's the main thing. Not just to grab the paperwork and put your name on it and fill it out and send it to them, but to grab the paperwork, to read it, and to comprehend it, and to go and you know, I know it's hard to get into the law. The law is the code. It's coded. The codes are hidden things. Um, like when the military codes a message. Okay, that's what
Mm-hmm.
the lawyers are doing with the you know, it's codes, and so it's not, you know, it's hidden and it's not meant for people to be able to actually, you know, find their way around in it.
So I read this and I kind of understood because I've talked to you before all this, but what stood out to you on this?
What is it?
Do you see the document? Did I pull it up?
Yes, I see it.
So what
I
should
think the
I
main
just?
things that stand out is like down at the bottom where you're working in your local communities to bring the republic back. That's what it's about. Like down at the bottom, you know, the expatriation is one thing. That's you stepping out. But now after you step out of it, you know, what are you going to do? Go back in front of their court, or are you going to hold a common law court? Because it's your jurisdiction then. There's nothing they can do. When you step out and you expatriate out of their corporate structure, you become a man with real hands and a real man with hands and legs, a flesh and blood human being living not in their tax system. You have more than a right to make them take your property that you bought and paid for your house off of their county books by the lodial title of it. I won't use the word allodial, but lodial, we changed that. It drops
Mm-hmm.
the A because the A puts it into a what's called a negative condition. So in other words, anytime you have a vowel in the English language or any other really, anytime you have a single syllable vowel in front of a word, then that is a negative condition of the word. It means no, like the
Okay.
word America. All right, America has the single syllable A, no. And then MECRI is Latin for mercy, and CA is Latin for sheep. So the word America means no mercy for the sheep.
And
And
really, it all goes back down to phonics.
exactly, the Phoenician alphabet. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
that's correct.
So I guess I'll copy this website and the link so they can, whoever can look over
Yeah,
this and
take it
see
up
it's
to like
not.
the third part. Go up just a little bit more there. Up just a little bit. And it's grand ideas, see? Okay. See, first,
More.
foremost, you can share this information with all the people responsible for the circumstance. And so when you look at the document we'll post with this, it gives you all the people that you need to be sending this document to. And then, second, which would be down on the third page at the top of it, um, second, your next task is to recognize things for your benefit. Okay? So that's just it. If you did not create this to be to my benefit, then you created it to defraud me. If you created it to defraud me, then you can pay me the damages for defrauding me.
And
But,
when you say create, what are you talking about? What do they
well,
create?
they created this commercial vehicle that is not you in your name, in an
The
all
all
capital letter
caps.
name.
Okay.
Yes.
So
And
the only
so,
way we can prove we're legal is by our DNA.
well, see, it's a legal fiction, but it's unlawful. A,
Mm-hmm.
a, See, we have what's called lawfulness. We are standing in the law, in law. We are lawful. They see when something is legal, it's incorrect to do it,
Mm-hmm.
but it has been legalized. It has been licensed. And so that's the thing. We're not standing on anything legal. We're standing on lawfulness. Now, if you look at your money, it says legal tender for all debts, public and private. Legal
Right.
tender, not lawful tender. There's nothing lawful about that. And because of that, it's perpetuated fraud as well. And so now I'm know 100% that every single Federal Reserve note that has ever been printed, the ones that they've burned and destroyed, if there was a serial number, it's a crime, which entails $25 million fine, corporate fine, and 5 years in prison, plus all of the stuff under racketeering, all the stuff under deprivation of rights under collateral law, deprivation of rights under conspiracy. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on and on and on. There's no way that they would want to stand in court with, if people can get off of their rear end and come into the courtroom situation just to see that the trial is fair. There's no way that they could function in a court of law, even in their courts, in commercial courts, under the Admiralty jurisdiction. And what you can tell if the court's um, under an Admiralty jurisdiction by looking at the flag that's in the courtroom. And if the flag is being captured by the yellow fringe, a few things are happening there. The first thing, it's changing the dimensions of the Title IV flag. The second thing is changing the colors from red, white, and blue to red, white, blue, and gold.
Mm.
The third thing is it's capturing it. And then when you look the mast of the flag, sometimes you'll see a ball, a gold ball, a silver ball. Sometimes you see a phoenix, which would be the Vatican. Sometimes you see an eagle, which is Britain. Um, Sometimes you'll see a spear. It just depends on their advertising with that. That's an advertisement, an advertisement. And so that lets you know. And so,
Hmm.
you walk into a courtroom and you see a yellow fringe flag, you know dang well you're in commerce, you're in Uniform Commercial Code, And this is the other crazy thing that they had done, which is not of effect anymore. I'd like to see them try it. Uh, they made the commercial code. It comes from um, oh, what's the name of it? Anyway, the law merchant. So to really, comprehend the commercial code really well, read the law merchant, and that gives you a good understanding of how they've codified it. And so this is worldwide. It's not just in the United States. A lot of people, oh, well, that's United States law. No, that's the world's law. That's the over the whole earth. And basically, well, it's just hard. It's hard to explain what they've done with this. They have commercialized everything. Everything has a routing number. We have a routing number. Our social security number, the trust number it's a routing number. All numbers that have 9 digits are routing numbers.
That's
And so
true.
that's what they've done. And that even goes into your passport. You'll find even your passport has a 9 digit number on it. And so all these numbers, that's exactly what they are routing numbers for shipping, not for trucking. Now, does UPS truck my goods to me, or do they ship my goods to me? In reality, it's on a truck, but they're shipping it. It's crazy.
Hidden in plain sight.
Well, yeah, and it's just that they taught us the terms, but not the definition. They've taught us fake definitions for words that we use when we communicate with each other, uh, to have a conversation. But the words do not mean what we use them for conversation for. That's the trick.
Or
And
they
even
mean a lot of different things. The same word can mean 4 or 5 different things.
That's right. And so this is the thing. With this, what we're trying to do with this expatriation is to have a way that we can govern ourselves. Govern yourself or be governed. And so when you expatriate, when you reserve your rights, when you secure your vessel, when you claim your life, all these things, you claim your soul back. Well, I've been hard at work on a document to actually claim the soul back. It's not really complete yet, but I believe we're going to have to put the sole of our foot on it with,
So are these just stories you heard, or is these things work that you have personally done, filed papers,
Yes.
promissory notes, cashed
Now,
them?
I have a little bit of different technique. Well, it's a lot different. And one of the main things that I try to tell people when they do a financial statement when they capture this vehicle and secure it, and then they do a financial statement on it, a UCC1 financial statement, they're not going to want to record that statement. Okay. You want to notice with the statement. So basically, you're going to put an international notice out through, I think it's Washington State. Just go to Washington State. They have a UCC filing office where you can do it online even. And so just notice it internationally. And what that says is, hey, there might be a lien out there that this guy's got on this commercial vehicle. And so basically, when you would need to use your private paperwork in a court situation, you're not even going to go into the court situation. You're going to go into the chambers of the judge, which if you reserve your rights, you won't even have to do that, because any charge that they would try to bring against you now look, you don't have a right to hurt someone or to damage people's property. But when they come and try to hurt and damage you for whatever they say that's wrong without a victim, without a real crime, it's a false charge. And so the first thing you'll do, any kind of defense you put up, the first thing you do is you create what's called a cross claim and a counterclaim. Now that moves you from the place of a defendant into the place of the plaintiff. Now you're bringing the charges. Now the burden of proof is on to them to prove the charge is not false, which they can't do. You see? So everything's kind of like a dual-edged sword if you know how to move in commerce. And so, but I mean, this stuff just doesn't happen overnight. You have to be a little devoted to comprehension of things. And but the bottom line is, if you try to do this stuff, they will test you. Okay, and so just if you have just a little bit of knowledge, is so powerful because they're doing everything in fraud. And if you have just a little bit of truth, you can override all of that fraud. And they don't want to mess with that. And they certainly don't want to make a display and with you in the know with all of their people that have no clue, you know, they don't want to make a display, make a show, or any kind of presentation with you. And so basically, you know, if you do comprehend just a little bit of this truth and a little bit of this knowledge and your paperwork's done correctly, then they can't touch you. They're not able to do that. And they will let you go, you know. They'll let you walk out. But now you can't just, you know, you can't remove yourself and then step back in either.
So you can't become a natural person and then go back.
Right, right. Now I've been working on a technology where we can actually have multiple standings, and it's going to be a tricky thing though, because we have to wear hats that's been registered and all these things, and have established standing in with like the United Nations and things like this for it to correctly work, and it hasn't been tested. So I'm not even going to talk about things that haven't been tested. I don't like to do that. I mean, if I'm going to say something, it's something that I have personally, I got my paperwork for it.
So you personally have your paperwork and you're a natural person.
Yes, absolutely. And not only that, I have my natural person secured, completely secured to me as a transmitting utility, within which I've done all the copyright and copyrighted and trademarked it to me, the living flesh and blood person. And that's my claim. Look, if you did not create this for my benefit, then you created it to defraud me with. And so they just leave it alone. You know, they don't even mess with me anymore. Well, actually, the last time that I got messed with, they had 13 charges on me, and I was acquitted by a jury, and the jury wanted the police charged for perjury. So it didn't work out well for them. And then they haven't really screwed with me since then, but one time. And what I did, I filed a claim of the live life done in quantum language. And what you do, you send this off registered mail to yourself. And so basically, you're just handing it to the postmaster. They're taking your money. It's like $17 or something like that. And she just fills it out, stamps it, and hands it back to you. Well, you've paid for that vessel then to go through the port of that post. And so, you know, you paid the freight. And so now, well, I never did, you know, I don't pay taxes. I've never paid taxes, never had any reason to pay taxes, and they've never said anything to me. But the bottom line is, if they would, I'm going to present that and say, so you show me where you have this in your documents? And the reason I know that they won't is because I have a friend, Mark Wood, and you know, he helped me actually get my document up and running. And you know, he showed me a letter from the IRS, and where he just sent them a copy. He didn't even send them a real copy with his DNA or anything on it, but he sent them a photocopy of it, and they sent it back to him and said, "We have no record of this person." Of course they don't. They deal in corpses. They're not dealing in. They can't deal in flesh and blood. Anything that they would do to a flesh and blood. But see, the way that they get us is through our agreement. Because you'll be sitting at a sentencing hearing, and the judge will say, "Do you understand these charges?" Well, yes. You know, do you understand why you're being sentenced? Yes.
Right.
You have to say, "No, I don't understand." Well, you know, they're not trying to ask you if you're comprehending. They're asking for permission to do it to you. And when you say yes, you're giving your permission. So there's no one sitting in prison today that didn't agree to it.
Right.
Well, maybe a couple, like Thomas. I know Thomas went, he said, "No, I don't understand your charges." And he did everything right and correct. And they just ignored it and did what they wanted to do because they fear what he can do to them. And it's through these documents that opens that gateway for them to go down. And so they're scared of the documents. And you know what? I got a whole cache of his documents. And so that's good.
So do you want me to pull up one of his documents? Because this is already going on an hour and something.
Yeah.
Or do you want to wait?
Yeah, just go ahead and pull the document up. The first one, which would be the actual expatriation, and then the other one would that I wanted to show with that one would be the second document is it's a demand for the diplomatic standing. After you expatriate, you're repatriating. What we did, we expatriated and then repatriated into the republic. So we're expatriating from the corporate USA into the organic republic on the land under the Constitution and common law. We're setting our jurisdiction with that document. So it not only does it expatriate you, it repatriates you, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
So this is the one you wanted me to pull up?
Yeah. And yeah, we'll make that available. And just where it says Thomas House of Degan, you'll put your name. His name was Thomas David Degan. And so you just use your first, middle, and last name, and you'll keep the house of part. There's a big thing to that. So we don't really want to get into it right now, but the technique of the writing in this is correct. Now, something that you would want to do before you actually would file this document would be to do your reservation of rights first. We'll touch on that in another video, and that's an extraordinary document.
So this is where you were talking about Thomas David House, a Degan.
Yeah, and so the expatriation repatriation document, and as long as I guess you're going to get it done before Obama is not president, you can use all the addresses and everything on there should be current. But as soon as we get this next president, one would have to change it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But everything on there, I mean, every word is calculated. Every single word is placed there on purpose. There's nothing that should not be there, and everything that needs to be there is on it. Because the documents are 100% lawful and correct.
Is this how you did yours?
Yes, and Shepherdized. Yes, mine's Robert Lee House of Thomas, and I don't really like using my middle name, and I punctuate my name. I'm a full colon Robert hyphen Lee space full colon Thomas. And I know some people that put the full colon in a space and then their last name, but I put the space and the full colon in my last name.
So this could. Mm-hmm.
Well, when you punctuate your name like that, look, George Washington punctuated his name like that. Benjamin Franklin did it. They all did it because that's the correct way to draw out who you are. That's with that punctuation and then a period at the end. Okay, you put the period at the end, like a sentence. It's kind of like how the clock works. If the clock says 12:12, it's 1212 if you take the full colon out of the middle. But when the full colon's there, we can see that that is time. Same way with that punctuation on your name. Ooh, this is a real person. And so they know that when they sit in the courtroom, and you don't really have to put in anything but down under where your endorsement would go or your autograph. We don't use signature. Once you do this, you no longer use a signature because the signature is a way that you communicate with that dead entity of the corporation that you're dealing with. See? And the reason why is because a signature means sign, no nature alive, and it's done in cursive writing, which is cursed communication with the dead. And so when you do a signature in cursive, you're practicing necromancy because you're communicating with a dead entity, and the corporation's not a living, breathing entity. It's just it's never been alive. So that's why that you try to go get a loan without a signature. Try to go get anything. You have to sign. You have to give that signature. And each time that we give a signature, there's a ton of invisible contracts that we never see that are on those signatures, especially with things that have anything to do with a bank. I mean, 1,000 contracts you sign when you sign one. and none of it's disclosed. It's all held to do this behind the books. And so, you know, that's the main thing though with the expatriation is that you're stepping out of that stuff and stepping kind of into life. I mean, you know, you're saving your own life.
But you said this would not be the first step.
Well, I mean, I don't think that it should be the first step. And the reason why is because if you have your rights reserved, then you have your right to do these things. People who have gotten in trouble, the main reason they get in trouble is because they don't have comprehension of what they've done. They just grab up a template of a document, put their name on it, fill it out, and then send it in, and don't even know what they've done. And so that's not what you want to do.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I asked. Someone's going to print that out, write it just like that, and send it where?
Yeah, don't mess with it. I wouldn't recommend messing with it if that's the way you're going to do it. You need to take a little bit of time and get some knowledge to go with that. And that's the main thing. Now, as far as the commercial things, I would say Jordan Maxwell is the authority on it. You know, look up some of the occultic commercial law of the sea. That's the thing. Whether we want to admit it or not, the law is the law of the ocean, the law of the sea, and that gives them the venue to do what they've done without having to. You know, if they had to go by the law of the land, they couldn't do any of this. So that's what we want to bring back. To bring it back, that's why you expatriate away from their corporation back onto the land. That's what it's about. So this one's run pretty good and long. We better cut it for the benefit of people who don't like to watch long presentations.
Okay, well, we'll just leave it at this. It's pretty much an outline of what the whole "we're all free by birth" is going to even touch on, because first of all, Lee knows people that offer these services, which some other people might know as well, and they charge a lot of money. They don't only charge money, they charge in gold. So for anything for anything he's even sharing, period, is the weight of actual gold, literally. So I appreciate all his time. I'm so glad I crossed his path. Of course, nothing's coincidental. Everything's syncretism, which we both know. So we're going to wrap this one up. If Lee wants to say something else.
Well, I'll touch on what you said there. You know, a lot of people weren't paid. They weren't paid, and I don't believe that you should have to pay for freedom. And I've always thought that in my digging for this knowledge and my search of this knowledge, I've paid much. Okay, I have paid, and I have friends who have paid. We have friends who have thrown everything together to go to like seminars and get the documents and things like that. And then, you know, but you know, I'm not going to do that. If I've got it, I'll give it. I'll buy of and you know, buy of it, but give it away. And so that's the thing. And if I can help someone, you know, do these things, then I'll do my best to do that too. And if someone's in bad trouble, those are the ones that need to do it first.
Right.
If someone's in trouble, they need to really do it. And so before their court date comes up, because see, if you can get that into that federal judge, I'm talking about the reservation of rights, you can get it into the federal judge before your court date comes up. Then you can send the case number to the federal judge from the county courthouse and say, hey, judge, look here, here's an open case on me. He knows you have what they call it diplomatic immunity, but that's not really what it is. They call it that so that they can all comprehend and understand why they don't mess with you anymore. And they'll just say, well, you know, he's got diplomatic immunity. They call it that because the police officers and everyone else can understand what diplomatic immunity means. But that's not truly what it is. It means you're standing in your sovereign capacity and they cannot do that to you. That's what it means. All right, so we'll wrap this one up.
Okay, so I guess the next one you'll touch on is the reservation of rights.
Yes, that's the best way. And then
Okay.
after that one, we'll do a series on the secured party creditor with the many documents to that. And at the end of that one, when everyone comprehends it, I will disclose the bond and the promissory note.
That
That
he
gets
has
us into the
actually
money.
did.
Next, yeah, and so that's how it all functions.
All right. Well, on that note, I hope if this even just helps one person, our job's done, because all we wanted
That's
to do
right.
was share. We just want to be that little spark of light in this dark world that if anyone's lost, they will find it. So that's all we're doing here, is just trying to bring everything back to one whole full circle.
Yes.
So,
Now you imagine what happens if everyone would just take a leap of faith and say, you know what, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to learn that what this means and why. And pretty much I mean, we've laid it out. This is why and what it means and why it comes about. You know, how it is in existence and what it's for. And so that's not really hard to comprehend.
mhm.
And it's not a bad thing. But now, if people embrace these things, what chance do they have? Because they stand in all that fraud, and that's a good place for us to start off, is because they have defrauded us. And if they want to claim that it was not fraud, then hey, then give me my benefits, right?
I will,
If it was to benefit me, I want my benefits.
right. I never ever understood how 538 people control what 7 billion people do on this planet. That's who's in
They do
government.
her.
So hopefully people will wake up. We were talking facts. We were talking Amendment 13, 14, and 15. We showed simple ways. This is all facts. So if anyone wants to actually figure out who they are and the value that they hold, this is be a place to start. As of there's many others out there. You have to seek. So I
Yes.
guess you done, Lee?
Yeah, we're good.
All
I
right.
think we covered it pretty good.
Well, we're tuning out for now, but not forever.
All right.